mention too much about some of the changes. We should probably mention, at least based on our understanding currently, what the changes are, or at least what have been confirmed or discussed in the Primecast and in various materials that we have access to. So, I want to thank Chandler Torres, first because he is, I believe, with Hand Cannon Online, I think, or he's reposting from Hand Cannon, I'm not entirely sure, but he was one of the first people to compile the information from the Primecast, so just throwing that out there. I didn't go and do it myself.
Yep.
I just stole it from the internet, and I'm reading it to you now. So, very first thing...
The internet give it, the internet take it back.
So, the very first point is that the point scale system is doubling. This allows more precise control of the points. So, for example, a model that would have been, a 5-point model was being charged, 4 or 3, or like say a 2.5-point model is either 3 or 2.
Okay, back up a second. What you mean by a 2.5-point model, because that doesn't fucking exist.
That's true.
Is a model that's too good to be 2 points and too bad to be 3 points.
Fair. Now, confirmed on Twitter.
Yeah, I don't remember who it was. I'm sorry, but someone was saying like there's been some confusion. 75 is the new 50, so it's not straight doubling.
It's going to be like 1.5.
So I can't remember who said that. Who said that? But it was somebody like. Sorry, I seem to have created some misunderstanding. 75 is the new 50.
So that was after the initial discussion.
So it had been like on podcast. They were just kind of talking off the cuff, and someone said like it implied that it was doubling. I mean, and it wasn't actually doubling. So it was 75.
When you the thing is when did you talk about the change in warjack points, or
we haven't yet?
Okay, but talk about that. When you include that, it actually kind of gets back to the double.
Yeah, we do need the more context.
Okay, so I'll get through this and then we'll kind of touch on some of the points.
That sounds good.
Well,
like a good idea.
Okay, sure.
So the second thing is every Warcaster and Warlock will have a unique spell and/or ability to set them apart from one another. So you end up with a lot less functionally similar, but just one's better kind of things.
So it sounds like maybe they'll have their feet and one more thing.
The spell is a blasty spell.
Yeah.
They'll have their feet and one other thing that is completely new to them. It sounds like.
Yeah. Well, it says specifically spell
or ability
and/or special ability of some kind.
Yeah.
Which doesn't sound like it includes feats.
Well, because feats are feats, they're not special.
So a new rule called
special.
Well, fair. So there's a new rule called Power Up, where Warjacks are allocated 1 free focus at the start of your turn if they are in your Warcaster's control area, although I believe that the nomenclature has been changed to control range. Now, they've consolidated a lot of the terms, so I believe that that's the new term for that, but maybe I'm wrong. Either way. So that is, I guess, in a way, because you're forced to take more Warjacks based on something we haven't mentioned yet, that's a way to...
Like, are we trying to talk about these changes as we go through them, or are we summarizing them at the end?
Keep going. That's a good question.
Just summarize.
Okay, well, so Warcaster here we go. Warcasters are having a massive change in Warjack or
Warbeast.
Warbeast, there you go. Well, WB seemed just weird. Warjack or Warbeast points, with plus 28 to 30 being about normal. This is, of course, comparable to 15 to 14 points based on the doubling idea.
Yeah.
So I guess math-wise, that's not actually accurate. It's probably closer to maybe 20 points. Sounds about right.
Well, just
keep going. Yeah.
So so this is, of course, comparable to 15 to 14 points. 14 to 15 points, since the point system is being changed, the new battle boxes are basically 0 points. So, if we take a look at a battle box, roughly, like, let's use the circle one as an example.
Sure.
You've got a...
the new one?
The new one, the new box. So Gorax is, in current points value, 4 points. Argus is 4. And the Warbeast...
Pureblood is 9.
Pureblood is 9. So that would be 17 points in the box, which is effectively 0 points. So when you compare it to like a 5 or 6 point Warjack as is in Mark II, we're looking at a considerable step up in terms of how many Warjack or Warbeast points you get.
Okay, are we talking about this yet, or are we still summarizing?
Keep going.
Okay, so universal pre-measuring is now standard.
Woo!
So you can measure what you want, when you want, however you want, doesn't matter.
I don't even know if it's casual.
I've got a lot to say about that, so
I'm sure
let's keep going. Let's get through them all, and then we will come back to them and talk about each one.
Fleeing no longer exists. Command checks aren't a thing.
Thank you.
Huge base models have been rebalanced to be true centerpieces of your army. An example given is that the Conquest is 4 times the cost of a Juggernaut, but feels 4 times as powerful.
That sounds awesome.
That does sound good.
Regarding the Fluff jumping forward about 2 years to start the new story arc.
I like that.
With Signar under new rulership. I don't know what that means, but whatever. And Fluff will be told completely through Skull Island books rather than through the main books, which is, we'll talk about in a minute. There were a couple points that were missed. Sorry, there were a couple points that were missed. And Jason Souls, I'm not sure where he's from necessarily, but he posted this in the main boards because he felt like he should have addressed this in his Insider. So I guess he's probably a privateer guy. So what he said, he goes on to say there's a couple points that were missed out on. So specifically relating to the changes of monstrosities and vectors. So monstrosities, Cephalix monstrosities do not benefit from power-up. Instead, a monstrosity gains 1 focus point every time it suffers damage as a result of a continuous effect or from an attack, either friendly or enemy. And instead of having these focus points removed during the maintenance phase, monstrosities will retain their focus points until they have been spent. So it doesn't matter. They just
keep
hang
it,
on
they don't lose it.
Likewise, power-up does not affect vectors in the new convergence, which are actually still considered warjacks in the new editions, although they don't have a cortex. So I guess the big differentiation between power-up is whether or not you have a cortex. I suspect, and maybe I'm wrong, that without the cortex, you probably don't get that free focus.
Yeah, but that makes sense, because the cortex, without a cortex, you can't be allocated focus.
Yeah. But until we see the rules, it's probably correct, but maybe wrong. So instead, they rely on focus induction to keep the focus point. Focus induction now simply states when a convergence warjack spends a focus point during its activation, you can give a focus point to another convergence warjack if the two are in the same battle group and are within 6 inches of one another. That's it. Okay. That's the whole rule.
So just like
at any time you spend a focus on this dude, if you've got another dude within 6, you're good.
So to clarify, focus induction already exists. Induction nodes already exist in Mark II.
Yeah.
But there's a limitation of only using it once per turn.
And also, this extends to all vectors, not just ones that have...
All of them have it.
Oh, okay. Well, I wasn't aware of that, so... Fair.
Yeah.
So those are just the 2 points that he wanted to touch on. There's also one big change to the to warlocks, where the warlock can. So previously, we'll just kind of explain it this way because it's not actually written out here. Previously, a warlock can only gain focus or fury through reaving from its war beast or hurting itself to generate additional fury.
Leeching. Also.
Yeah, whatever.
No. You were correct in reaving, but that's only when they die. Leeching is also...
Whatever the fuck. Anyway, from your beasts, and also you can hurt yourself for fury. The problem with that is you develop into a late game state, especially in more competitive environments, is that if, through the natural course of your game, you're going to lose models. And as you lose models, your warlock becomes significantly less effective, whereas your warcaster is either equal effectiveness or doesn't have to worry about throwing focus out.
It becomes more efficient.
It becomes more efficient. So the way that they decided to tackle this is warlocks will now gain up to 1 additional fury point for each of its light, heavy, and gargantuan war beasts that have been destroyed or removed from play during the game at the start of the turn. So now we have a situation where warcasters get a free focus for each warjack, which is nice because then it's a little more focus efficient. But when they die, they don't. They lose that, and warlocks don't get punished so heavily for just existing in the game as not a warcaster.
That's a fantastic balance here, though, because it typically in War Machine, like when you had a crazy amount of jacks, there's a reason why there was infantry machine, right?
Yeah.
Is that if you had too many jacks, you were so hurting for focus to be able to activate them all in the early game. But then in late game, when you only have a couple, it was never a problem, right? But now warlocks were the opposite way. They were great early on the game because you could throw this fury around like nobody's business as long as you don't care about frenzying, right?
Yeah.
So and then basically you could late in the game when the casters would be
just
totally
start cutting yourself,
right? You'd have to be able to just keep going, right?
So I just want to touch one more thing on the last point. So the name of the ability for the warlocks is going to be Spirit Bond instead of Power Up or whatever. Yeah, Power Up is actually the name. Sweet. So let's move into kind of some of our thoughts about some of this stuff. No, we did say a couple things, but let's kind of break it down.
Okay, so the thing that I was talking about, with 75 being the new 50.
Sure.
Okay, so combined with the change to like Jack and Beast points, to where you're looking at like 28 to 30 being the norm, you're actually still looking at about like 100 points total.
Yeah.
Versus what would be like 56 typically.
Right.
So it still is basically double, but you have to spend more of that proportionately on Warjacks and Warbeasts.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, that's
the points.
No, it's true, yeah.
The points of the game are increasing, but the amount of war beasts you have is increasing by a proportionally larger amount.
Yes, exactly.
So it basically,
Yeah.
it seems like you'll have roughly the same size of games as you do now,
Model
but with one more heavy war beast or two more lights than what you have now. Is what it seems like.
Yeah.
You'll be basically the same game, the same size roughly, but with one more heavy war beast.
So that coupled with the change to Gargantuan / Colossals is interesting.
I'm super curious as to how that's going to work out.
Yeah.
Because I kind of hope that there's a rule that says specifically you cannot take a Gargantuan or Colossal as part of your Warjack points. And
the wording for that would be that you just make sure that it has to fit within the free points. The free points are free points.
No, okay. The reason why I say that is because I don't really like seeing. Anytime you see a Colossal, that's the only Jack in the list. I think that you should.
Well, in this case,
this is just
like.
But if there's
more
going to be
games
rebalancing in Jacks anyways, that might not actually be the case anymore.
See, I fundamentally disagree with like that being a problem. I think it's actually totally fine if a Colossal is your only Jack in the list, but I don't like the current state where that's often especially for Signar, that's often the better choice, the optimal choice. My concern is how they're going to balance Colossals being 4 times as powerful as a Warjack versus making them actually still manageable without a Colossal.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's true. I mean, because we want the ability to decide whether or not you want to take a Colossal in every case, right? Having to auto-include something like that, especially a $120 model for newer players,
that's huge.
It is huge. And then, you being at just a strict disadvantage for not having one is also really shitty.
Well, that's the thing. Is I feel like they cannot practically make it like a requirement for tournament players to have Colossals. It's as much as we say, it's the best option. Casual players don't give a shit. No. A casual player might be playing Signar right now with Old Rowdy and 3 Ironclads and be like, oh, whatever. It's terrible, but it doesn't matter. That's what they're fucking playing.
That's true.
But I really want to see, and I'm not pessimistic. I think that they might be able to pull it off. But I'm really curious as to how.
Yeah, fair enough. My hope is kind of that I want them to be pointed in such a way that they are more expensive than the heavy Warjack alternative, in terms of points. So, in this example, 4 times the cost of a Juggernaut, but feels 4 times as powerful. Sure, okay, that's fine. But I kind of hope that 4 Juggernauts would be able to easily out damage the Colossal.
Does that matter though? Let's put it this way, right? If they are fundamentally equivalent, in fact, actually, I think the more experienced players are actually going to migrate to the 4 instead of the 1.
It matters.
Because the problem comes in is that you've got the all in eggs in one basket syndrome.
Yeah,
at that point,
true.
Right? So if they are equivalent, power wise and all that other kind of stuff, if I can basically hammer on that one guy and even get half his weapon systems down, at that point I'm coming out ahead.
So
right?
there are 2 reasons,
especially with how much of an attrition game War Machine is.
Yeah.
There are 2 reasons why I think it does matter, and the first of which is that there are special rules allocated to Colossals and Gargantuans that are not allocated towards heavies.
Right now.
I mean, this basically we don't know the rules changes, so that is the big caveat.
Yeah, there's going to be a whole lot of supposition.
Exactly. So if you can't move or place or affect a Colossal in many ways that you can affect a heavy, then there is an argument to be made just on the basis of, if they're equal power, equal points cost, this has this special rule that these do not.
But the thing is, though, say your second point first.
The second thing is, what I kind of want to, when they say 4 times more powerful,
they say feels
4 times more powerful. What I kind of hope that means is that they're kind of in the more, like you spend the extra points getting attacks that are just kind of egregiously overpowered in some ways. So for example, where your heavies might have like a POW 20 attack on the kind of top end, maybe your colossals have like a POW 25, but you still only have 3 focus or 4 focus.
So, okay, I'm going to try and address both your points. The first thing, where the colossal special rules where the heavies don't. Now, there's 2 things, like, you're correct, assuming that they keep, like, the no placement, the basically immobile, like, they're fucking rocks, you can't move them.
Yeah.
The thing is, you trade off flexibility of force and positioning for that.
Definitely.
What Dan was saying, like, you have this one huge base, sure, they can't place it, but you can't put 4 of them in different places.
Also, I mean, that is a good point, especially if, like, for whatever the next Steamroller pack is.
Now, that's, I think what we've just determined here, this is actually a good trade-off.
Yeah.
If they're equivalent power-wise, choosing whether to have this one big immobile brick that's harder to kill, like individually, versus having the ability to spread out your force, I think that's a meaningful decision that they can make.
Yeah.
But it has to, like, that's kind of, I feel like that's a
Not
nice...
to mention, more models is going to leverage the power up more.
Yeah.
Right?
That's you were to say that it's going to be like a really hard balance.
Yeah, it's going to be a nice set.
That shows great game balance. If they can actually pull that off, that's a fantastic.
Yeah,
I think with a rebalance now, after having like what 10, 12 years of experience making this game.
Yeah,
had,
yes, although
3,
like 3.5 with Colossal.
Yeah, they're like 3.5 now with Colossals. They tried battle engines and they didn't really hit the mark.
They're all fucking lame, let's be real.
Like, they could be awesome.
Cool
Siege and Mandrax could be amazing.
Yes, it could be kind of cool, but it's also...
Not.
Yeah.
That's the problem. But like they sort of missed the mark on that. I think they did better with the Colossals, but some of them really missed the mark, and some of them are way over. Like some of them really missed the mark because they're way too powerful. Some of them missed the mark because they're underpowered.
I disagree that some are really overpowered. I think that like the most egregious cases of that are like Stormwall and Stormwall, and that's just because Sigdar's other options suck.
So the Mercs ones as well.
Well, yes,
Earthbreaker's the best one, but that's because dwarves needed the most.
But the thing, so like in Mark II, in the absence of something like this power-up rule, in the absence of like a lot of Jack support, it also only makes sense to concentrate all your Jack on one Jack.
It's best to bring one big Jack.
So I guess the question...
Focus efficiency.
Yeah,
so
power-up I think will be a really, really good way to balance that out.
Well, okay, so power-up I think is going to be like very much integral to balancing that.
Yeah.
I mean, until we play some games, it's going to be really difficult to tell.
Yeah, until we actually know the rules. Like,
but
this is guesswork.
But that's a really fine balance thing to make.
It's fun to guess.
Yeah, it is.
And they make 4 Juggernauts as playable as one Colossus is 4 times their cost. They'll play very differently, but they need to make it so that they're both really they have the same success rate.
You're getting
really
like another 4 times the free focus though, right?
I don't think
there's. Yeah, I don't know. I actually think it's going to be a lot easier than... I'm not as scared of that. And I'm a casual player, and I'm not as scared of that as Steve is.
Yeah, I think that, like... I don't think that they'll have to have the same success rate with, like, the same caster. But I think over, like, average. Yeah. Because I'm sure that what they'll have is they'll have some casters that care more about taking, like, concentrating power.
Like, I have a spell that affects my entire battle group. Of course I'm taking 4 Juggernauts.
I fully expect there will still be, like, Haley-style casters that just want to take, like, one Jack. And then, like, spend all the rest of their
a lot of my Khador playing friends are like, yes, they're all like, yeah, finally I can run 1,000,000 Jacks, it'd be awesome. I can finally, I'm like, I actually would love to see Khador's heavies be equivalent of like what's now like 12 to 15 points instead of being 8. So they still only bring 1, maybe 2 Jacks, but those 1 or 2 Jacks are like what Khador should be, just like big fuck off monstrosities. Whereas like, because Khador isn't, like it makes no sense for Khador to spam Jacks. They should be a Jack factory. I think they should have really good Jack options. And right now they just run 1 Jack poorly. I think they should run 1 Jack really well. That would be, and that'd be a really good way to differentiate them from other factions like Signar, who can spam more Jacks, but they wouldn't be as good individually.
So my thoughts on that are, I mean, I agree. So I agree. I don't know necessarily about Khador and it being the one that they do it in, but I do like the idea that the way War Machine factions interact with their Warjacks is fundamentally different across different factions. Because right now we have like this homogenized kind of, everybody gets A-heavies that are functionally similar. There's not there are some differentiation, but there's not a lot of differentiation between like this guy's heavy and this guy's heavy in many cases. So I agree that like if there were, a faction that had 15 points or 30 points in the new system, whatever the equivalent is, heavies, and that to be like their thing. That's cool. I like what they did with the monstrosities, but we'll get there in a minute.
Yeah.
I hope that there's a lot of bloat, and I hope that we have an opportunity to make decisions in list building that aren't just like, well, this is obviously the best stuff, and then this is the next best stuff.
Touching on that, this is more wish listy stuff, but this is just a general thing. I think that this is a fantastic opportunity for them to remove bad choices.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like there are probably there are models that are traps. That are like, there's no actual reason to take this over something you can get either in faction or mercs or whatever.
Right.
Like, I think what they need to do is they need to give the treatment they're giving warcasters and warlocks with this unique speller ability to everything in the game.
So actually that's going to be wishlisty, so I'll bring that up later. And I think that's a reasonable point. Like, I think every unit should have a thing that it does that's unique to itself.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you can have some duplication like cross faction. So like, you'll have a Ret unit that's like your stealthy Ret unit, and you'll have a Khador unit that's your stealthy Khador unit. And I'm not saying that they should be exactly the same, but they can share they can share some rules.
Yeah, that's true. I would still
like to see more specialization.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to see the specialization of certain models matter.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, you take a unit like Cossite Woodsman right now, where they're specialized. They do an ambush thing, but they suck ass.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, I have a shitty longbow, and shitty rat, and shitty move speed, and I'm shit. Part of me really likes the multiple list situation for tournaments for War Machine, but the other part of me, it devolves into skew lists and sort of stuff like this too fast. I would love to see a situation where it's more like, where either you have a list that you bring for the tournament that has to take all comers, or
list with a sideboard.
List with sideboard will also work,
Yeah.
or something like a Malifaux style, like you get your objective and then you build your list afterwards. Or list with a sideboard is actually
I wish specialist was just part of the game.
and it could be.
Yeah. So I think that's another wish list I have. I wish that was, and then ADR was like. Say you have 20 points specialist. If you bring both casters on ADR, both lists get 20 points rather than a share.
So let's before we get into our kind of wish list here, let's just go over a couple of things here. So we've gone over the point scaling. I think that it'll be interesting just on the point scaling. I think it'll be interesting to play somewhat bigger games, assuming things are tuned well.
Yeah.
I mean, otherwise you're not functionally adding anything.
Although from the sounds of things, they're not actually trying to go for bigger games.
Yeah, they're trying to make
other
more
than
granular
the
scale.
accumulation of the extra points.
It sounds like a play with one more War Deck or War Beast, or maybe two.
That's when you consider what they're doing with the.
That is significant.
With the
That's not a
gargantuans.
much bigger game. Yeah.
That's true. So I really, then the next thing on the list here is every Warcaster Warlock will have a unique spell or thing that they do that is
huge.
That's good.
So I hope that they don't play that too safe. I want things to be balanced, but I want some really interesting mechanics. I want things that are that really make a difference between this list with this Warcaster and this list with another caster. Because when we started the game, one of the big selling features of the game was that, well, you can buy your army or your collection, and if you change the Warcaster, that's going to make the biggest difference to the way the army plays.
That's still true, but there's
true to an extent.
Well, it's still true, but there's so many casters now that there's they've been shoehorned. Some of the casters have been shoehorned into just being like, hey, this is this other caster, but better / worse.
That's true, and there's that's the thing. There's a lot of what feel like irrelevant casters, and I don't like that. Especially for casters where you're like, I like the theme of this character, like the story behind them or whatever, and you're just like, but they're just kind of garbage compared to these 4 options.
Right.
I don't like that. So I really hope that they put a lot of time into that specific part.
Make them very different.
Yeah.
Rather than just this guy has a unique ability that is basically the same as
Exactly,
this guy's, but it's got a different name and slightly different word.
This guy's huge cock of doom is purple. This one's huge cock of doom is yellow. Well, the color doesn't really matter. Somebody's getting penetrated. That's the thing. So then the power up rule as well as the spirit bond rules. Fantastic approach to a long-standing problem.
Yes.
I think, at least with no other information in a vacuum, it seems fantastic.
It's nice to a certain extent.
And I think it does incentivize people to run multiple jacks, which is...
to a certain extent, it's
may or not.
exception.
I don't think the intent of it
Absolutely.
just makes it not a penalty anymore.
Well, no. So the thing is, like, I still think that it's. I mean, obviously, we can all agree that it's still going to be better to have like 5 heavy war beasts than 5 heavy war jacks.
Yes.
But like, honestly, all that rule really does for me, in a general sense, is let you maneuver your war jacks into position. And see, that actually,
especially early games.
well,
that's a
exactly.
huge thing, yeah.
That is a huge thing because that means that you. Even if you don't have more functional focus to allocate, like even if you can't fully load like 3 or 4 war jacks now, they can all be in positions where fully loading one of them is relevant.
Yeah. That also reminds me, actually, there was another thing that is not on these sheets, and was a rumor that I might have talked to just you about. I'm not sure where I got the information from, so it may or may not be credible. Probably isn't credible, whatever. But somebody was saying that there's going to be a greater discrepancy between warjacks and the maximum amount of focus. So like, rather than just 3 across the board, you're going to see 4.
That's
something
really cool.
I heard, I don't remember where, I think I might have told it to you.
That might have been it.
It seemed like there's like 3 won't be the maximum for all of them all the time.
I
don't know what
I
that
hope
means.
that's true.
But
I hope, because the thing is, like, you think about it, like, war beasts have a fury stat.
Yeah.
There's no reason why the
Sometimes-
warjack
sometimes
can't
3,
have a focus.
sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's 4, sometimes it's even 5.
It's like, what's the point of having the stat if they're all the same? Like,
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like, there's no reason they can't have a focus stat.
Yeah.
And if they do have it, then they can have different, like, they play around. And that plays into them making factions jacks different, too. Because, like, you think about, like, Signar has, like, the really high tech, so they have big cortexes, big focus numbers. So you can give them a lot of focus. They don't necessarily have to be as powerful, but they can, like, if you have PS18 that you will on something a few times, whereas Khador can have, like, the cheap, shitty cortexes, so, like, the 3 focus maximum, but they can have, like, PS22, because why the fuck not? Because they can actually...
make you one
which
less
allows
attack.
them to work closer to the way the fluffs actually.
they can express the power in different ways.
Yeah.
So
I hope that's the case, and more than just, well, still for our character warjacks that we've always done this for, it's that way.
well, no, it wasn't character warjacks. Well, it was
Bonds.
because of warjack bonds.
Yes.
But it wasn't because they were character. Like, not all character warjacks.
No, not all of them, but like, I mean, the most of the examples where you've
Avatar, Death Jack.
exactly that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Avatar doesn't have bonds. Avatar's a piece of shit.
No, I mean like Avatar gets extra focus. Yeah.
So that I mean, that's pretty sweet. What else we got here? We've got war. I think the warlock one specifically, more so I think than the warcaster one, affects, like, unnerfs the warlock.
See, I mean, I think it's nice that they're giving them that little buffer there.
Yeah.
I like, because honestly though, the point the game's at right now, if you're at that point where you've lost most of your war beasts, if you're a Hordes faction, like 90% chance you're already done. It
But
doesn't
the thing
matter.
is, if you're even just down to 1 heavy, you're still screwed. Like, you're still, or at least you're still significantly behind.
Sure, yeah, but like
Whereas the warcaster isn't.
If you're at that point though, you should be close enough to the end of the game where like you can cut yourself for that one turn and then just end it.
Because if you don't cut yourself for that one turn, you're dead anyway. So it really what it comes down to is like when you've got that little protection. Because war beasts are always such a big thing.
The thing is, you're already penalized for being a warlock by the nature of you not having as many spells and you relying on your animus to carry you through. So if you're down that as well, you're down like in multiple places.
All I'm hearing here is an argument to make the Fury system less overpowered in comparison to the Focus system, which the power-up rule sort of does.
Yeah.
The thing is, you're penalized for being a warlock for doing that, but you're also rewarded for playing Hordes in that you can take 50 fucking heavies and they can all go buck wild one turn
I mean,
and not give a shit.
Well, or you can play Convergence and just do it anyway.
Well, it's way harder because they have to be within 6 inches of each other, and it's
Just a combo line.
Like with warlocks, I find when I want to build like an infantry list, I'm spending way more than I want to on beasts because I have to bring at least. Like if I've got a 7 Fury caster, I need to bring at least 9 Fury worth of War Beasts because then I can lose one and not be like I can lose one and not just like. Be
I'm
out.
sorry, you're playing Hordes and you're able to build an infantry list?
Yeah. You can do
But that's
that.
the thing.
Fucking red privilege over here.
Yeah.
But building on that though, that's still going to be the case because you have to have.
But
those
now you can do like I'm gonna bring instead of bringing like a bunch extra, I can bring a little bit extra, and when that one dies, I still have enough for my guy.
But the thing is, like, because you've got a significant increase to your War Beast points,
we bring more.
I mean, you're going to be taking those.
Anyways,
Yeah, I think
You're going to be taking those anyway.
I think the interesting part of this is it benefits lights a lot more than heavies. So you can they can design like more castery warlocks who are incentivized to take like 6 utility lights with their beast points instead of, although you wouldn't get 6 because they'd be probably like 10 points. You can get like 3 or 4 utility lights.
That's a really good point.
And still be doing fine.
I mean, that's a really good point because right now, as it stands, there are few reasons in almost any army, and there are some skew lists where this isn't the case, but there are few reasons to ever take lights.
And one of them, and this actually, this works super well, my last point. One of the reasons to take lights is because of the animus. So what you do by doing this is you take a bunch of lights, like 3 or 4 lights, you add those 3 or 4 spells to your caster's spell list.
That's true.
And then you have a better buffer of fury when your war beasts die because they're pieces of shit.
Because they're super easy to kill.
Well, because they're pieces of shit with great animuses. But, so like that actually is really cool to me now that I think about it. From a like, let's have a castery or like infantry support warlock instead of
because you don't have to keep him as a backline and hide him basically.
Well, you might still have to keep
him. You may want to if you really need that animus, but a lot of the times the animus is good mid-game and doesn't really care much late-game anyways.
And like,
right? So,
I mean, hey, one of that warlock's special features could be, hey, I can still cast the animus of my dead warlocks. Like that could be a thing.
That could be really neat too.
And then that could be like an actual like really like beast-centric caster rather than it's a beast-centric caster with the focus on caster rather than a beast-centric caster. Like, it puts the focus on the warlock casting spells out of his beasts rather than just using the beasts as like beat sticks.
Pre-measuring.
Being a casual, I always found one of the clunkiest things about this game is you can't pre-measure except you can.
Yeah, I wish pre-measuring wasn't part of it, but it's so stupidly easy and so easy to break pre-measuring right now that I think it needs to be universal pre-measuring. So I would be happier if there was no pre-measuring, but the way they've done it so far has completely failed and they need to fix it by adding pre-measuring.
So, Steve, do you support pre-measuring?
I do.
Okay, so that means that the only person in this room that doesn't support pre-measuring says Cotter. He's wrong.
That's fair.
Excellent.
So my thoughts on pre-measuring. I mean, first off, I recognize that it is a skill that one can learn how to do. However, it is to me an unnecessary barrier to entry for newer players. It's very difficult for new players who may or may not have played tabletop war games to look and just be able to spatially understand that this is roughly however many inches that is, which we're not going to pretend that I know how to do.
Yeah.
And the most dissatisfying fucking thing in this game is, I think I can charge you. Oops, I'm a half inch short, I lose the game.
I think that to attract new players and also to remove a barrier of entry to the tournament scene, I think it's positive. I think that in order for tournament scenes especially to continue to grow and thrive and become a thing, you need more people involved in them.
Yes.
And that's a way to do it.
I agree with the first point that it is definitely very good for new players. I disagree with the tournament point because it is a skill that raises the skill cap of the game makes people... So again, you can't have both, and I think it's more important that they have the pre-measuring than not. But I'm not all cheerful about it.
See, my argument though is that it doesn't raise the skill cap of the game. It just adds an additional skill one needs to have to play.
Yeah,
so it raises the skill cap.
No. It would be
because
Dan, I got this. Well, what if you had to play the game while riding a unicycle?
That would be more difficult, but it would have nothing to do with the game.
That is exactly the same as pre-measuring.
Sure, but the measuring of the game is fundamental. That is
No. All right, being able to measure distances with a tape measure is fundamental to the game. Being able to gauge the distance with your eyes is not at all fundamental.
But it is, because
it's not though.
They get rid of it and then it's not. And they basically have gone to the point where it's like half and half and it sucks.
As a casual player, I'll tell you right now, one of the most interesting things to do is to actually go to a tournament, especially an event that has multiple tournaments going on, and actually see the differences between the different cultures. And the big one that we see when we actually, usually not a War Machine tournament player is just how often judges are required to play this game.
Yeah.
And I believe pre-measurement, because of the fact that, coming from a Warhammer Fantasy background, where they actually did go from no pre-measuring to pre-measurement, what it did is it took away 90% of the argument. Because I would throw my tape measure down and look at it with my opponent and say, is this 12 inches?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. let's keep going.
Because you go, and you can do that without like, now you have to say, I'm charging you, then this is here. And there's like this impetus on like...
Yeah, it's now the person who's doing it has a good reason to say, I'm in, and the person on the other side has a good reason to say it's not.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm not all for no pre-measuring, I'm not all for pre-measuring, I'm torn.
So for me also, the biggest thing for me is that I just never really understood, like I'm good at pre-measuring, like at calculating measurements in my head. I'm actually good at it, but I just don't understand why that should be a barrier for somebody to be good at a war game, is to be a carpenter.
So I agree with that. Now for me, whenever I've played games with people, because there was no pre-measuring, what ended up happening, at least in my case, because so what ended up happening was if somebody was just short, I'd let them have it. And the reason why that is because to me, I would rather beat somebody who, based on the decisions that we made in the game, based on the game state as we understand it, than them having to be a quarter of an inch out, and what they thought they could do, they just can't. Because I feel like that having to have that skill takes away from the more tactical choices you're making in the game. I think that it shouldn't be in the game, or pre-measuring should be in the game, but having that skill shouldn't be. Because there's already so many decisions to be made, like as far as deployment goes, as far as movement goes, as far as how you're going to develop into your mid and late game, and all of it. Like there's a lot already. It feels like just an additional thing that we're kind of adding just for the sake of complexity, not for the sake of the betterment of the game.
It's the reason they added it is because every war game at the time did it.
That was definitely the broadcast.
When War Machine came out, even when Mark II came out, I think GW games were still doing it at that point. And then, like, fucking everything has dropped out. Malifaux you can pre-measure, fucking all the GW games as far as I know you can pre-measure. Relic Knights you can pre-measure. Wrath of Kings I think you can pre-measure. Like, every game you can pre-measure. And I actually went through the same progression as the games. Like, when I started playing Fantasy and 40K back in the day, like way before, I was like, oh yeah, you shouldn't be able to pre-measure because it's a skill. It's something you can be good at. And it's like, because, I mean, I actually have a pretty decent eye for distances, and like it was something that I could stroke my ego with. I'm not saying that's what you're doing, but it was something I could stroke my ego with. I'm so good at this, and like you can use that as a crutch for not making as good decisions, just like baiting people into making bad distance judgments. And like I feel like you shouldn't be able to do that because it's lame and it doesn't add to the game experience.
I think like that's my like what I agree. Now I do agree that it is a skill that one would have to learn in order to engage. I just think it takes away from the game.
I just don't think that skill is relevant to gameplay. I think the game should be based, like, I think the outcome of the game should be based on the decisions you make, not your ability to eyeball it.
In fact, it's for the same reason that I'm happy about the next thing, which is fleeing no longer exists in command checks.
That is 1000% the best thing out of this whole list.
It's because, again, that's another thing that didn't add anything positive to the game experience at all. It was just like, oh, well, everything's going perfectly fine, I've got my strategy, and on the statistically unlikely roll that I just failed,
now I'm fucked.
Now I'm screwed, exactly.
Or like one thing that I have only done once and never again, and only in a tournament, because it's just the most disgusting thing in a casual play. I had a list that has 2 Void Spirits. They're incorporeal. You don't have magical weapons, I run along your line, make 5 command checks. I run along your line, make 5 command checks. Those units are out of the game.
Yeah.
Like that is...
And that's just, it's not...
That is not
nobody feels good about that, right? Like
I don't even feel good about that. I did that once in a tournament, and I was like, "That's even too douchey for tournament play." And I felt so bad. I was like, "No, never again."
And that's the thing. It's like, it's just it's the same thing. The same problem I have with Games Workshop games, or at least specifically Warhammer 40K, and that it just adds an element of randomness that is counterintuitive to a tournament setting.
And it's like you're like I'm command 10. I'm gonna charge this abomination. The chance of me failing is like 1.5%.
Well, it's like 1 or 2,
it's like a 4 or something. 5, I don't
just
know.
under 3%.
Whatever. It's a really ridiculously low chance. You're like, I'm not gonna not do it because I need to kill these guys.
But you just have a random chance to fail.
And I lose.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, and that's so.
The thing I find that's really cool about this is in removing that random, like the random, my ship's gonna panic check. they actually add design space to
Yes.
play around like
Yes.
fear-based mechanics.
I would love
where-
it if like
in
fear,
different
like
ways,
if terror was like a debuff to units. And
like,
models.
well, and like say, like you can still have like command scores, but you don't have to make the checks. Except like maybe say a caster has a spell. It's like target enemy model, like roll 2d6. If you get over their like you try to damage their command, and if you get that, then they flee. It's not the same as fleeing, but like.
But it's like the same thing.
Then they're scared of stuff.
So I mean, I'm not sure if that's exactly what you're saying, but what might be interesting, and if that is what you're saying, just is something like that where a terror thing is a debuff that reduces somebody's command value. Then the models have to group together.
You could also do that. That's not what I was thinking, but you could also totally do that.
But that's the thing. It's like now you're playing with your spatial kind of game.
You're not shoehorned into making that fear and
or like
terrifying
fear can be
work
like
that particular way, right? You can totally redesign it and totally be flexible with it.
Yeah.
I actually think that's.
But also like when you have the one model that can't rally and he's fleeing across the board. Well, now we've got 4 turns of him. He's just running.
Well, he doesn't have to move in the current system either.
Okay.
Fleeing, you can flee 0 inches.
Yeah,
That's
he
true.
has to make a run action. The run can be 0.
You can cower in fear
Which
rather than
is
running.
silly as well. We've already kind of touched on the huge base model thing. Fluff. Jumping ahead 2 years, I've never been really much of a fluff guy. However, I am interested in the new stories, and I think one of the biggest things to me is not necessarily that we're jumping ahead 2 years, but that all of the story from this point onwards will be told in novels. Because I will read the novels, I will not source through multiple army books and the rule books and try and piece together the fluff. I just don't enjoy engaging with it that way.
Well, especially with most war games, there's so much overlap, so much like rehashing of the same information, especially when you're talking about like army books and stuff that end up getting republished, and it's like it's the exact same fluff. It's just been tailored differently, right? It's just and it's funny because the Chop guys they mocked me because I at one point said that I didn't read the fluff in my book, and it's like why it's like the 3rd edition of this book. The fluff is still the same. It's just been rewritten over again, right?
I mean, to me, so like there have been stories inside of the Iron Kingdoms that I'm interested in learning more about, and because I'm not interested in participating with the various army books and like trying to parse the information through 15 different books. Basically what ends up happening is I go, hey Mike, hey Logan, tell me about this story. And like, can you read me a story, please?
I mean,
and that's what ends up happening.
Yeah.
The flip side is that I will miss reading. Like, I liked reading through a new release book, even if I didn't care about any of the models. Like, even if all the model stats had been spoiled, I like reading through it for the fluff and the story. I wouldn't mind reading through that in a novel. It's just, that's another thing that I'm going to apply.
I don't like... And I mean, maybe I'm in the minority for this, but I don't like that for every time they release like a thing, like here's a new round of Colossals, here's the new book. Like I don't like that book purchase.
No, I mean, I like after the first Colossals and Gargantuan's book to actually add those rules, I think the book is a superfluous purchase. It's a thing that people can do. And, you're right in that, like, if my only reason that I want to buy the book is to read the fluff, then I can just buy a novel
But the
instead.
thing is, like, there's no real reason otherwise, because you get the cards, you get the stats on the cards when you buy the models.
Sure, for your particular crew. But the thing is, the high-end players, like, I talk a lot with Jeff, and he's a pretty high-end player, and it's, especially with War Machine, it actually has so little to do with your army, but what people can do to you with their army.
Well, but I mean that's what War Room's for. I mean,
but War Room only it's the same deal. You're buying all the card packs. So
that's true.
The flip side is like you have a bigger initial investment in War Room, but then you don't have to keep paying for it.
Yeah, true enough.
Yeah.